Mr. Moye.
Yes,
Uh,
that's me.
this year is the 50 years of Art Ensemble of Chicago.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about the beginning?
The beginning, the nucleus began in 1962 with Roscoe Mitchell and Malachi Favors playing together with Fred Berry on trumpet, who is now playing with us again on the latest record, which I will show you. And Malachi Favors, Fred Berry, and Alvin Fielder. That's the latest record. We are on the edge. And then in 1965, Roscoe began with his Roscoe Mitchell Art Ensemble with several different people. Lester Bowie came to Chicago and started playing with Roscoe and Malachi. And Philip Wilson, the drummer from St. Louis, started playing. That was the nucleus of the original Roscoe Mitchell Art Ensemble. And then in 1969, they went to Paris. Philip left the band in 1967 to go on tour with Paul Butterfield. So they played without a drummer for 2 years. And then when they were getting ready, Lester sold all of his furniture and everything to finance taking the boat to Europe, the SS United States. And they had 2 motorcycles, a Greyhound bus, 2 kids, and Fontella Bass, his wife, was with them. And they were invited to go to Europe. And when they arrived in Europe, to make a distinction between the other bands and the AACM, which is the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, a journalist in Paris said, "Oh, this is the Art Ensemble of Chicago," because it was originally Roscoe Mitchell Art Ensemble. Then the name changed to Art Ensemble of Chicago, and then I joined the band in the fall of 1969. I'll show you the first record. Can you?
Sure.
First record I did with them.
So the Paris was very important for
Yeah, that's where the name got created, in Paris.
Yeah.
And that's where we did a film score. We did a film score for a very famous French movie called Les Stances à Sophie. And that was my first recording with the Art Ensemble, which I think I have a copy of that here. Let's see. Yeah, this one. You're gonna laugh when you see this photo. All of us young, 1969, in the Escalier. This is near the Cathedral, Montmartre. It's a big stairway going up the Cathedral of Montmartre. That's us. Look at all the hair.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Afros, you know. So this is the first record that I made with the Art Ensemble. And then that was the end of December and early January 1970. We went back to the States in 1971.
71.
Yeah.
So probably you haven't thought of. So what can you tell me about that? How the things were going in the following years, and especially towards the end of the 20th century?
The beginning was always a cooperative and a collective. To cooperate, have a collective ideas, and to cooperate to help pay for all the expenses. So we paid for everything: the instruments, the rehearsals, the vehicles, and then we had an office, lawyer, bookkeeper, accounting. I was responsible for all that, and we made our first office in my studio in 1974. That was the year when I registered for American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, and also with AMRA, American Mechanical Rights Association. We registered all of our songs because we had been members of SACEM in France, and they had a big scandal stealing all the money from the musicians, like they all do. So I changed everything because we were back in the States. I changed all of our publishing and production to ASCAP.
Okay.
Then I made the record company, Art Ensemble of Chicago Operations. That was the name of the business entity. And so we had the record companies, AECO Records. I think it's on the little triangle. AECO is Art Ensemble of Chicago Operations. So I created that, and then we had the logo, the stationery, the literature, the photos and everything, and the products. Then in 1975, we started doing mail order. People would send us money in advance, and we would send out the products. And we made Baptism on Atlantic Records in September of 1972. That was the first recording we did for a major label. The other recordings that I made 10 other records with them before that, but it was for French labels. And then the first American label, Atlantic Records, we made a record with them in 1972, Baptism, 1973, Fanfare for the Warriors, and then in 1974 when we were at the Montreux Jazz Festival, Montreux, Switzerland, they recorded us. They didn't want to release the tapes, so we bought the tapes and we released it ourselves. That's live in Montreux. And then after that, like now, I think I put out 30 records of all the different stuff. And then anybody that put illegal records out for us, I just reproduced them. We call it re-rip records.
Okay.
Because, rip off, then you rip back,
Yeah.
So, that's how we dealt with the issue of pirates, because we had 75 records, 52 okay, and 23, maybe 30 that were illegal. So every time I find some, I reissue them on our label.
Okay, that's cool. You are one of the very distinctive and very original band in terms of, for me, especially two things. That's collective improvisation and your approach to improvisation, and the other one is not just musical but also visual. You're one of the rare bands that has very unique visual aspect. So how did you came up with this?
When I joined the band, the whole emphasis was arriving to the stage in dressing, because the tradition in my history and my experience of the music, a lot of the bands, when the big bands, they had competition for the best dressed band. Roy Haynes was always the best dressed drummer in New York or something. So we took the tradition of entertainment.
Okay.
This is black bands, white bands. In the 40s, the 30s, the 50s, everybody dressed up. It's not like it is now to go on the stage, get up and out of bed and go do a concert or something.
Yeah.
So we continue the tradition of dressing for the occasion, because then the people came out, everybody was dressed. And so that's the whole throwback to that. And then it was the whole relation to indigenous cultures, world culture, all the ceremonies, the ceremony music, religious music, social music. They had different there were rituals, there was dressing, there was special
ceremonies
things associated with certain events with the appropriate music. And then the musicians, the participants, they would dress. So I bought into the whole thing, ethnic styles, like India, Japan, Africa. To me, it's all related. It's the universal mix. Exactly. So like I might have a Chinese shirt, African pants, Afghan boots, and a Russian hat or some shit,
Yeah. Sure.
So that was part of the thing. And then the face painting, Joseph and Malachi were already doing it.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the first gig I played in Berlin at the Kunstgalerie Nationale, we played in July 1970.
Yeah.
That was the first. That was the last time everybody in the band had their face painted. Before that, that was the last time everybody painted. Then after that, only me and Joseph and Malachi continued that tradition.
Continue.
But I always remember that concert because everybody was.
Everybody was painted. Okay. Now.
And then we all had our own choice of what style we wanted to bring to the stage. But we had a style.
You had a style, definitely.
Get off the tour bus and go on stage.
Yeah.
We dressed for the occasion.
Together we shine, doing our own thing in our mind. Kings and queens, warriors and lovers. Kings and queens, warriors and lovers. We sing indigenous eagles. Whoa, 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 whoa. We sing indigenous eagles. Whoa, 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 whoa. A body without a head.
Speaking about the improvisation and impact that each of you as a member had on that improvisation, how did you approach that? Writing, the music, and what is going on?
Composition is. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what is going on the stage in a certain moment?
No, it's written music.
Okay.
It's collective mindset, unknown. I mean, it's a five mind musical entity. All people focusing on a similar goal to create different feelings, different sounds, and everything. But we had different kinds of composition, regular written written music, and then Roscoe has a system that he created besides standard writing music. He had symbols and drawings and everything. So we had several different ways of notating the music.
Okay.
And also, we rehearsed. So we used to go on the road. All the years with the band, we would go on the road and rent the house, so that nobody, like if I was in Chicago, in the morning I would be in the garden and taking the kids to school, and everybody that's not from Chicago would be waiting around for the rehearsal. If we go to New York, Lester's taking his kids around. So we would leave our homes, and go out on, like we went to California, we went to Portland, Oregon, we went to Woodstock in New York, we went to Tucson, Arizona. We did every year. We used to go out to California for the specific purpose of rehearsing every day, with no distractions from family responsibilities. We paid for all of that, because I remember in 1974 we were in San Jose for 2 months rehearsing all the time.
Wow.
And then playing around. So we bought a 1951 Greyhound bus.
Wow.
And in 1972, we drove that for 10 years, so that we could consolidate all of the instruments. We had 3 bands, so that means 3 drivers, 3 gas bills, 3 times expensive. So when we consolidated everything into the Greyhound bus, that means we had 4 drivers in one vehicle, so we could all drive 4 hours at a time. Sometimes I would do 8 hours, but the general time we did, to not be too tired, between 4 and 6 hours each. That way we could go all the way to California in like 30 hours from Chicago, no stopping.
Wow. Wow.
Or going to New York. We drove to New York, we drove out to Oregon, we drove to Tijuana,
Yeah.
we drove we were down in Texas, and we drove all over the states. We bought a used Greyhound for $2,200. Drove it for 10 years, and we sold it after 10 years for the same amount we paid
really?
for it.
Because you put so much value and impact on
Yeah,
that
no,
bus,
we
right?
ran into this guy that wanted to convert the bus into a camper.
A camper.
And so he said, I'll give you 20. He gave us more. I think he gave us $2,500. And see, in those days, gas was 25 cents a gallon.
Okay.
So for $30 or $40, we could go all the way to New York, because we had 120. The tank was 120 gallons, and it was 60 gallons of water and 8 gallons of oil. And gas, diesel gas was 25 cents a gallon. So whatever 60 times 25, that's like 1/5. That's 15 bucks, 15, 20 bucks. We could damn 2 times fill up. We could go all the way to New York.
How did you see your impact and your music on the society, on the different cultures, ethnics? How did you see that, and what was responded you were getting all around the world?
That's a lot. I never thought about it like that. We just trying to make a good show and play good music, and stay out of politics.
Okay.
No politics, no
politics.
talk. No, the music had to speak for itself. Yeah. Politicians, blah, blah, blah. And I learned my lesson because in Paris in 1969 and 1970 with the Black Panthers, we did a lot of benefit concerts for Eldridge Cleaver and all these people, and at a place called Mutualité. And I think we did maybe 5 benefits. All Art Chef was there, Frank Wright, a lot of different people, Art Taylor. We all played for the Black Panthers. Yep. And one night, you ever heard of Clifford Thornton, trumpet player? He gets up and starts making a speech, a political speech, and the next day they exiled him to Geneva. Wow. He couldn't come back to France. So that's when I learned. I said, I'm not dealing with I'm not mixing politics with any. I don't want the police knocking on my door. Because in those days, as a matter of fact, when we had in 1970, they saw us playing at the Black Panther benefit, and we had a big house out in the country with everybody rooms. We had rooms for the kids. We had a dog, barbecue, a swimming pool, all that. And it was in a village called. I'm trying to remember that. It was near Le Bourget Airport. Anyway, the mayor of the town saw us on the TV or on the news. He said, "What? You have revolutionaries living in my town?" So the police came and confiscated all of our instruments, and they had us paying a fine for tax, or not paying the French tax for our performances. So we had to do a whole tour to raise money to get the instruments back. And then they wanted us, we left France, we went up to Scandinavia and Germany, and then we came back maybe a year later after touring around and everything. No, it was 6 months. But yeah, anytime you had any kind of political statements, that was the lesson I learned. Yeah. To keep my mouth closed about anything. If you're going to make political statements, don't make it in context of what the band is doing. You have to speak for yourself. Exactly. Then take your chances. So we figured out to leave that politics. Politics is some bullshit. Blah, blah, blah. I just play music, man. And so that was the 2 lessons I learned about. The first one was Clifford couldn't come back to France. They sent him to Geneva. And the second one was the fact that they saw us. That was just guilt by association of performing for the Black Panthers. We didn't do no speeches enough, but even that was like, I'm willing to support causes, but I don't want to make no speeches. Sure. It's a fine line.
Yeah.
Just you have to know who you're dealing with when you do that kind of stuff.
As a member of Art Ensemble of Chicago and drummer, you are also well known as the percussionist. who was using all kinds of, not just traditional percussions and percussions that are mostly used in jazz music, but all kinds of different stuff. Can you tell us more about your approach to the percussionism?
Still studying, man. I'm
Yeah.
studying all this stuff. Every time this is changing my mind again, seeing all these guys.
Yeah.
You know, seeing David and John and, you know, Horacio. Yeah. So I started out with playing marimbas and studying congas and all of that. I mean, it's too much in a day. So I have to, you know, you have to choose. In retrospect, I wish I had spent more time in music than business. But the music makes the business, and the business get paid. So you got to have both. But the music is first. But I specialize in all the contracts and the infrastructure and all that. I regret not having a better balance. So in looking back, that's my only regret about when you asked about multiple instruments. Yeah, well, we rehearsed all the time. And then we didn't play any instruments. All the instruments had to be at a certain level. It wasn't like when I joined the band, they were playing percussion, but they weren't really percussionists. So I had special exercises for years that we did, just rudiments and all this stuff. So I said, wait a minute. If we're gonna have all these percussion instruments, it's got to be some kind of, you know, standard of the technique. But then that could only go so far. I resolved that issue by having my own percussion group, and then by the same token, we encouraged everybody in the band to do their own stuff, so they wouldn't have any issues about not fulfilling their personal dreams or their personal goals musically.
Yeah.
Inside of the band. The band is not going to fulfill everybody's goals. This is what makes bands break up. So we said we're going to have structured time off. You can go do what you want to do, and when you come back with a fresh approach to the 5-mind concept that you're trying to do. That keeps a band together. So like I say, I'm sick of this stuff. I have to go to another direction. I'm not fulfilling my goals. So Lester wanted, as a trumpet player, he wanted to fulfill his goals of having a brass ensemble. So we had Brass Fantasy. I played in that band. We worked in 6 different bands. We had 6 bands working out of our office. Because I was in Brass Fantasy. Then we had another combination of the New York Organ Ensemble with organ, trombone, trumpet, saxophone, guitar. That was another outlet or another fulfillment of certain kind of music that he and I wanted to play. And then we had Brass Fantasy, New York Organ Ensemble. And then they played the musical styles that with advancement, post-bebop, the period of music that came after that. We had a band, The Leaders. That was an outlet for that, which also was my outlet for playing with a piano trio, because we didn't have a piano in art ensemble. We had the piano 4 times with Don, one time with Don Pullen in 1990, one time in 1984 with Cecil Taylor, another time in 1972 to 1974 with Newhall Richard Abrams, and the last time was 1995 with Lester's son. But those are the only 4 times of recording or performance that we had a piano player. So the Kirk Lightsey trio was my fulfillment of playing piano in the trio. And then the Leaders was it was Kirk Lightsey piano, Cecil McBee bass, Arthur Blythe alto, Chico Freeman tenor, Lester trumpet, and me. And sometimes we had trombone. That was a fulfillment of a musical style that was different from the emphasis was to be able to fulfill your dreams of playing different kind of music and have bands that stayed together. All these bands, every band I was with was always together more than 10 years, and rehearsing in the context of the time we had when we weren't working with the art ensemble. And me and Lester were just about in all of the bands. Then we had another band combining with the Brass Brothers in Norway. And that was a band with Norwegian folk music, American gospel, and the Brass Brothers, the brass band, and percussion and drums. So that was another project that we had. We worked a lot. And then we had another project with a singing group from South Africa. Ambubuto male singers. We did that for about 8 years. And then we did a whole thing where we combined art ensemble, brass fantasy, and the South African singing group. Then we had another project, Art Ensemble of Africa, where we had another chorus from South Africa, and we had musicians from Mali. We had another project called it's a Salute to the African Drum. That's when we combined art ensemble with my percussion ensemble. So we had 6, 7 drummers and the rest of the band together. And we toured, we did like 40 concerts in 42 days or something. That was a big moment. So we had all these special projects inside of the aesthetic and the working structure of the art ensemble. And then we had our own management, we had our own crews, we paid for our own equipment and all that. Didn't nobody ever do none of that shit. No sponsors, none of that shit. So I'm kind of still in awe, and we have cause to reflect on what is the value of being independent. But then you have to, only way you can do that is you have to have a cooperative collective. And then when people start coming and talking about that, I don't even want to hear that. It's that somebody put some money on the table. With me, it's not a cliche. It's a reality. You collectively determine some idea. No, you cooperatively do ideas, and then you collectively go in your pocket and put some money on the table. If people are willing to do that, then I'll buy into that. Otherwise, I'm not in that. Because that's just, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Okay. And for the end, how do you see jazz music, 70s, 80s, like the end of the 20th century, and now the beginning of 21st century, in terms of developing, the mixing of culture? What is your prediction? Just tell me your
prediction
thoughts
on music in general is I want to play with human beings, not machines.
Okay.
So beyond that, I don't have any limitations about names or genre or nothing. I like any kind of music that's good, but I prefer to hear music with humans playing, not playing with machines. And then that could be a limitation because of the technology that exists. But I think it's too much emphasis on, like now, you got these DJs going around and they don't hire bands anymore. Then you got one guy with a computer and, he's doing all the stuff. I pay for humans. I want to play with people. And if the electronics and the effects, that's an enhancement, but that's not a singular focus of the stuff. So in terms of all of the music out here that I'm hearing, I want more of that. So good luck on that one, because the trend, like all the music shops in New York and Midtown, all the stuff's online now. Ain't even no music stores no more. I don't know what's happening in L.A. I mean, it's kind of sad. And then you go to the music. Well, that's kind of off. I wandered off the subject, but the bottom line is, in terms of all the music, I'm a folk musician. That's what I think of myself. Preferably acoustic, but open to other developments. Preferably with as many humans as possible. So that's my thing.
Thanks
And
so
the
much.
art ensemble now, in extension of that, we're touring now with 18 people. 18 people and 3 crew. That was the record I showed you. Like this, we're going to Brazil. Oh, for Chicago, I think we're going to have 18, maybe 20 people. So it's like 3 bass players, 3 strings. You got a girl that plays all the electronics and everything inside of the acoustic context.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 singers, flute, 3 percussion, 2 trumpet, trombone. Did I miss anything? 1 saxophone. Yeah, I think that's it. So in terms of, that's a realization, we made a commitment to do that. So guess who's paying for that? Nobody came in, with a bunch of money. We invested in that ourselves. So I mean, it's still an investment. So the magic is, I don't know if it's magic. It's some magic, because I go through the records of all the fine. I got good recall all the money we put in. Like I remember 1980, when we got our road cases. That was a big investment. I think we paid $10,000 for all of the 34 road cases, flight cases, bass drum case like this. But then we used them for 40 years. And then everybody, like Lester was red, I was yellow, Roscoe was green, Malachi was, Malachi was, Joseph was blue,
Okay.
yellow, blue. We had color scheme for all the cases, so when the roadies bring
Yeah,
the things
they
to
know
the
what
stage,
it's-
they know what goes there like that.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things I learned about that from watching the rock bands and what other people were doing. The only thing nobody ever told us how to pay for that stuff. Wasn't no record company in the sky or no producer, So the magic of it was the collective mindset of getting, like we put 50% of all of our income into production, which is office, maintaining the band, the business year round. And then the good part I like, people had Lester got 4 or 5 kids, or we all had kids and homes and stuff, but nobody ever complained like, well, my expenses are less than yours. Everybody agreed to pay it was 10% each out of our pocket. That added up to the 50% that we put in the business, and the money that was left. That's how we got paid. So that's the reality. And so maybe it ain't magic. It's magic that we were able to continue to agree to do that.
You did well.
Which we still doing that now.
Thank you so much.